Welcome back into another episode of the Orange Crush podcast. Today, we have not only just a little bit of a Louisville preview, we got a little bit of everything today. We've got Bob Mahony, who is, according to the Clemson community and what I've been told, an absolute legend within the Clemson sphere, director of the Block C Club, been a part of IPTAY since February of 1989, and responsible for putting together the class of 2024 for the Clemson Athletic Hall of Fame. Bob, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
Doing great. I appreciate y'all having me. It's been fun, a lot of fun talking about this class.
Well, yeah, and first of all, I know that you're so busy. This is Thursday afternoon. You've got a big event tomorrow night over at the business school, and then of course we all know what's happening Saturday. But you do have that Block C there on your jacket. Give us the 30,000 foot overview for a lot of people that may not know. There's a lot of Clemson fans that I found out they don't know certain things about Clemson. What is the Block C Club?
Well, the Block C Club, it's kind of evolved through the years with the different people that have run it. And I took over about 14 years ago, and having worked with IPTAY for as long as I had, I wanted to make sure the Block C Club was under the IPTAY umbrella, because I really wanted the organization to be accountable to the leadership of IPTAY as we tried to run it, because that gave us a lot more credibility. There were a few of the guys that tried to run the Block C Club and did a great job, but didn't quite have the support that I've had since I took over. And so it's made it grow as an organization a little bit more. And we've had a few more resources to be able to use. The Block C Club is basically engagement for former student athletes. But when you think about that, that goal, that mission, it really begins with educating your current student athletes and making sure they know what the Block C Club is. And this is your way of staying connected to Clemson athletics once you leave, once you leave Clemson and your eligibility is up. And this is a way you can kind of keep up with what's going on in Clemson athletics. So we really have four main goals. When I talk about it, we have fellowship. We do a lot of reunions. We have a lot of people come back on campus for different sports. We've already had 6 reunions for different sports so far in this football season. And that's for the fellowship part. And then the other part is recognition. A lot of our former student athletes have a lot of success once they leave, and they're all not professional athletes. A lot of them very successful in business and having success in their families and everything else. And we want to help them recognize that. And we want to, let their teammates know what they're doing now and where they are. So that gives us an opportunity. We also have what I call outreach, and making sure we reach back to those student athletes that never did get connected really when they were here, and try to reach out to them as part of our outreach program. And then the other is just education. And that involves both our current student athletes about what Block C is and really what IPTAY is, and what IPTAY, how big a part IPTAY has had in their career at Clemson, and how much IPTAY puts in to provide their resources while they're here. And that Block C is an extension of that once they leave, that we continue to educate them. We continue to keep them engaged with Clemson.
In the world of the ever-changing collegiate athletic scale, Bob, how much in the last couple of years has maybe that role that IPTAY plays in this changed with maybe NIL, and they're not connected at all, but has it ever come to mind of how it sort of shifts the balance? How does that part of it with NIL changing everything sort of impact IPTAY and what you do along with this club? Does it change at all, or is nothing at all?
With me, it's more hearing from former student athletes and why they didn't get part of the NIL when they were here. That's most, if only, I hear that all the time. If only. So you do hear that a lot. And, they like to be educated on NIL, being participants in that's kind of IPTAY's charge. Now as it continues to evolve, and it evolves every day, as as far as the guidelines of where it's headed, and the fundraising organization that's at any particular school is going to become a big part of the NIL. But like I say, I don't get that much involved with it. You know, if guys express an interest, I certainly have the resources under this roof in IPTAY to be able to direct them to the right people to talk about, you know, becoming involved. And obviously they're very involved in connecting with their sports. You know, how is our sport stand? Are we doing enough NIL wise to keep up with everybody else? And we certainly educate them on that. And, you know, then if they're interested, then we can get them connected with people that can, you know, put them in a position to help their programs.
So before we get to this year's Hall of Fame class, you wear a lot of hats at Clemson, including a baseball hat. Do you love the day-to-day operations of Block C Club more? Or do you like those spring and summer afternoons spent in the baseball press box watching your Tigers?
You know, that's kind of a bonus thing for me, that being able to be part of the baseball broadcast, working with Don and Kwok and Tony Schufo and those guys. That's a bonus for me to continue to be around the program, having played here, and getting to, you know, be around the kids and their families. That's really big for me. And obviously I can use that platform to help, you know, educate baseball players, because you see them all the time.
Right.
So I am on road trips. So that's a bonus for me. It's not something I ever planned on when I grew up. I didn't, you know, sit behind a mic or say, I hope I can do this someday. Or I didn't listen to broadcasts of baseball games and say, someday that's going to be me. You know, I enjoyed playing and thought that would, you know, that would continue, and not broadcasting. But Tim Beret got me started, you know, back in '89. We were doing a regional down at Tallahassee, and he said, why don't you come down there and broadcast those games? I said, Tim, I've never done that before. I don't know what I'm doing. He said, just talk baseball. That's all you got to do is talk baseball. And certainly that experience, and then working with Jim Phillips for as long as I did, you know, I probably did, probably 800 games with Jim Phillips while he was alive, and learning as much as I did from him. And then, you know, then with Don and Kwok, it's a blessing for me to work with those kind of professionals. And I love doing it. And it is a platform for Block C as well, and IPTAY, having been, you know, in this building and part of this organization for 36 years.
When I was a young writer at the Greenville News in Greenville, Piedmont, I was out at the Greenville Braves one night, and Jim Phillips came out of the radio booth, and he said, go put on the headset and sit in front of the microphone. And he's like, I got to go to the bathroom. And if I'm not back, just the read in is right there on the notebook. Say the score in the inning, and I'll be back whenever I can. And I wound up doing an inning by myself out at the Greenville Braves with him standing outside of the door, kind of laughing at me. And then, you know, that was kind of my introduction to calling baseball games. And so we have something in common. He actually would let me come in the booth with him on some of those slow summer evenings and call baseball games. And what a wonderful time, wonderful memories.
Yeah, it really was. He let me, you know, I don't do it anymore, but sometimes he'd let me do the middle innings. He would let me do, you know, 4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, 6.
Just let me do the play-by-play. So I learned something. I certainly, you know, never was as good as him. And you know, the guys I work with are great, and I enjoy doing the color. And I'm glad that I work with guys that give me time to do the color. There's a lot of times you can work with play-by-play guys, and they don't give you time to really explain plays. Why did he throw that pitch? Why is the defense shifted like that? All that kind of stuff. And the guys I work with, you know, make it very they do a great job of including me in and let me talk baseball. So, and that's what's so fun. I enjoy doing play-by-play, but it's hard doing play-by-play without sticking in your own color too. So.
Absolutely.
So I really
going to let you in
it.
on the broadcast for the Savannah Bananas exhibition here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if doing color for that group you could do it justice. From what I've seen on the highlights, you know, that the guy does a flip and then catches a fly ball in center field. I'm not sure how you describe that, but that certainly would be fun. You know, I would think.
Well, this year's Hall of Fame class, important in so many ways. Tajh Boyd, Sammy Watkins, obviously we know from the football side. But Clemson is celebrating 50 years of women's athletics. So, when taking when taking a look at this class and figuring out who was going to be eligible and who would be worthy, what were some of the things that you looked at? Obviously, having representation for these female athletes, very important, but even more so this year, I think.
Well, I think there was some focus on that. I think the committee that I work with, the Block C board, is the nominating committee for the Hall of Fame. And these people take a great deal of pride in what they're doing and spend a lot of time doing their homework before we ever get into our meeting in March to look at our lists. And we have a master list that we work from for people that just have remained on the list. If you're nominated, we advertise nominations in the Clemson and in all the correspondence that comes out from IPTAY, so people are able to nominate people. So we take all the nominations. So every board member knows everybody that's been nominated, whether they'll ever get a chance to be in or not. They know that person was nominated. And when a person is nominated, they stay on the master list for 4 years, and then unless they're nominated again, they come off. The other thing is that we look at are those athletes that become eligible. If you're out 10 years, you automatically become eligible for the Hall of Fame. And there's certain guys, as you know, and we're looking at 2 of them this year, that, we're out 10 years and they automatic. I mean, these are guys you look at and you say, okay, they're kind of automatic. And so you look at all the people that qualify, and really those 2 didn't need to be nominated because they became eligible in 10 years and they were kind of automatically on the list. Tim Beret helps me a lot with this too. We do a lot of bios, and we do a lot of, every sport. We'll look at every sport, who becomes eligible in track and field, who becomes eligible in soccer, women's tennis, who are the people we need to be looking at. And so we look at nominations that come in, those that qualify to be nominated. And then we also look at those that were last year. People were actually left on the board. When you come up with 9 people one year, this year we have 9. Last year, I think we had 10. But there were some people left off the list. There's some people up on the board that didn't get the votes to be in. So those are the first ones we look at. Are those people, should those people be considered this year to be in? So there's a lot of factors, and we have people on our committee that represent all our sports. So they do their homework before they get there. And it's not an easy process. I can tell you, I know when I started this like 14 years ago, we actually divided the Hall of Fame into 5 different categories. We divided it into football, first of all, because it's not fair to compare football to women's Olympic sports. I mean,
Right.
you don't do that. You want to compare football to football. If you got a bunch of football guys, that's what you want to look at. So we have football, men's Olympic, women's Olympic. We have coaches and administrators as a separate category. We have a historic category. I put that in there because often there are guys that played in the 50s and 60s that may not have gotten the recognition, and certainly their numbers would not compare to the numbers that are being put up now. But back when they played, those numbers probably looked pretty good. And so we look at anybody that may be left in the historic category. And then the last category is like a dual sport athletes. And there aren't that many of those. Kyle Parker, who went in last year or 2 years ago, either last year or 2 years ago. I mean, he was a dual sport that obviously, 20 touchdown passes in a year, 20 home runs in a year. That's something you got to recognize. And there are other guys that were dual sport, probably got recognized more for football, but you look at Jacoby Ford, you look at CJ Spiller, you look at Larry Ryans back in the 90s, who was the dual sport. He's still on our list for a dual sport athlete, ran track and played football. So we look at that. That's the 6th category. So we don't always fill all the categories. We often have somebody that is in the category but may not be voted in.
And you talk about sort of players that are automatic, and obviously if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the 2 that likely were the auto bids, if you want to put it like that, and Tajh Boyd and Sammy Watkins. Just maybe you could describe to our audience just sort of, and Sweeney's touched on this plenty this week, about just sort of the impact that they've had on building what Clemson football is today. Just when you're doing the selective process, sort of reminisce and look back at some of those memorable moments that duo had built. Just what have Sammy and Tajh meant to this Clemson football program? And with Tajh coming back to coach, you mentioned CJ Spiller, who's now on the coaching staff as well. Just what have these Clemson football alums meant to what Clemson football is today?
Well, it's pretty obvious when you start interviewing for these guys, and we pick out coaches and former players, maybe even academic administrators, because those people in that building get really tight with these football players, or any of our athletes for that matter. They all have experiences that see something different in those student athletes that make them what they are. And often, but when I get back to answer your question, when you start interviewing, especially for Tajh and for Sammy, and you interview Dabo, or you interview Jeff Scott or Maria Herbst, who had a tremendous impact on their academics here at Clemson, you find out, what an impact these guys had on the program. And Dabo will be the first to say that, if he didn't get a commitment from Tajh Boyd as a quarterback in his first class of 12 people, then there's no telling where Clemson would have gone. And then when Sammy came in, it was just one of those guys you got to have. And, that the recruiting process, he thought he'd really have to fight for Sammy. And Sammy pretty much told him, said, yeah, I'll commit. And he said, well, no, wait a minute. You don't commit unless you're sure you're going to, no, I'm ready to come. And for have a guy like that, make that kind of commitment to Dabo early in his career, really changed the trajectory, or helped. There's a lot of players that do that. It takes a lot of teammates to make all that kind of stuff happen. But those were two that I think, even in the interview with Dabo, certainly had an impact on changing the trajectory of Clemson football and his career.
So you've obviously got the big ceremony tomorrow night. Not everybody's invited to that. I've checked the mailbox. The invitation was not there. But Saturday, fans that are coming to the Clemson Louisville game, it's a night game. The weather should be absolutely gorgeous. The lights will be popping. What can people expect from the Block C Club and kind of honoring all these great athletes?
Well, it'll actually be split up a little bit. We're working with football because of Tajh being on the staff. Sammy and Tajh are actually going to be introduced into the Hall of Fame in the first quarter. It'll be one of the first couple breaks because he wants to be part of it. Dabo wants to be out there on the field with these guys. So at the 20-yard line, sometime in the first quarter, Tajh and Sammy will be kind of the formal induction ceremony is obviously Friday night, but they'll be recognized in the first quarter. So people want to make sure they stay in the stadium in the first quarter when those two guys are, go out on the field together with their families down there on the sideline. That'll be pretty special, I think, especially with Dabo being able to be part of that. And hopefully they'll have a bunch of highlights on the scoreboard and everything else. So it'll bring back a lot of memories for a lot of people when those two hooked up quite a few times. And then at halftime, right at the beginning of the halftime, even before the band comes out in the field, will be the other 7 will be recognized. And certainly this is a pretty big class, a pretty exciting class, a lot of success in this class, a bunch of All-Americans in their separate sports. And it's exciting. I'm excited just to get to meet some of these people face to face. We've been dealing with them now since last April, about when we've been talking to them about coming back to Clemson. And all these people have made big plans to be here and bringing their families, and some of them bringing coaches, high school coaches, and some of them, like Michael Johnson was coached by his dad. So, he'll have a chance to share this honor with his family and his father, who has seen everything, So
I'm glad you brought up Michael Johnson. That dude could swing it a little bit, right?
Well, he was part of, that 3 of 4, that infield is now in the Hall of Fame. If you were, right. He was, Tajh, Khalil Green was at shortstop and Jeff Baker was at third base. for that infield with Michael Johnson at first. And I think those guys combined, just those three on that team, combined for 76 home runs in 1 year. That which is unbelievable. If you really think about that, those three guys had 76. Just those three had 76 home runs. So, it's good to see Michael get this award because Michael doesn't have the personality of the other two guys. Khalil was certainly out on. He was his own guy, and Jeff Baker was a little bit more of an outspoken leader, and Michael was just quiet. He was, but he was obviously a great player, but led on the field. And I think Michael led by his work ethic because even Jack Leggett, his head coach, will say that Michael was probably one of the best examples of a student athlete development as a player from the time he got to Clemson, because he went to camp for 6 years under Jack before he ever got to Clemson. His dream was to play at Clemson. And so he was, his camps every year. And, Jack saw some things in him, but he didn't see the drive in him. He didn't see, just the aggressiveness that you like to see in a player, especially a college player. And he told him that several times. And Michael finally got the light switch on and, the kind of player he turned out. And he was the clutch player. He was a guy that he performed in the clutch. College World Series, NCAA postseason, and especially for Clemson fans against South Carolina. He probably has the best numbers against South Carolina than anybody ever has.
You talk about that Friday night ceremony being sort of separate from what fans will see on Saturday. What sort of maybe can the Hall of Fame class sort of expect on that Friday ceremony? What is that like to be able to honor all of the success that you've been talking about on the show?
It's pretty special. You got to get through it pretty quick. Otherwise you'd be there till 2 or 3 in the morning if you covered all the accolades of all these. And I do want to mention everybody else that's going in because there's some big time people going in as well as those three. But Don Munson will be the kind of the MC of the program. We'll get it started and he'll get up there, and it's more of an interview. It's more of we'll show a highlight of an interview with maybe Coach Sweeney or one of their teammates or even an academic advisor or one of their coaches that isn't here anymore. We've looked up a few of the coaches that coached them when some of these people were here. And, we'll show a highlight of a video, and then Don will kind of take them through that person. What was your relationship with that person? How did that person help you become the student athlete that you were at Clemson and achieve the success? So it's kind of an interview for each one of them, and it'll last, 5 or 6 minutes on the stage. And it really takes a lot of the pressure because I've already had 2 of them call me today and says, I talked to Sammy like 2 hours ago. He said, what do I have to do in my speech? He said, I'm really worried about my speech. I said, Sammy, you don't have to worry about a speech. You're going to be fine. We'll just ask you some questions and you'll get through it fine. We're not up there to throw you any curveballs, I can assure you. So it'll be fun. But that's kind of the format. It's different. It's a different format, different venue this time. Normally we've done it at the Madron Center, kind of a sit-down auditorium type thing up on the stage. This time it's in the lobby of the business school over across the street from Sykes Hall, and it's more of an open area, and people will be standing and eating, and we'll stop. We got DJ Shea is going to be there doing the music, and so we got a lot of lights and purple and orange lights, and we got plaques that'll be lit up and presenting them blazers, and so there's a lot going on, and thank goodness I got a lot of good people that help put this whole thing together because there's some talented people out there that'll really make it very special, and that's my intent. I want those people to leave the weekend thinking this is one of the best weekends they've ever had at Clemson.
So we've talked about the 3 that we know, but Louise Greenwood, basketball, she's going in. Jessica Leidecker from rowing is going in. Mark Lacey, everybody remembers him with soccer. Julie Rodriguez with volleyball. Victor Smalls, track and field. And I think Stephanie Weichert, did I hit them all from track and
You
field?
think you did? Yeah, 4 women.
So Stephanie
we had,
Weichert,
2
I
more
remember
guys.
her she going in. So great class. Can't wait to see what's going to go on in Death Valley Saturday night. And we certainly appreciate your time just kind of coming on and talking about the Block C Club and this great class. Absolutely fantastic
It
class.
is. It really is. I keep looking at all their accolades and how many All-Americans and some, Victor Small still has the high jump record at Clemson. When I tell somebody that he jumped 7.6 and I said, a door is 6'8". Think about that. No, most normal doors in a house are 6'8". He jumped 7.6, which is like, 6 inches short of jumping over your ceiling in most 8-foot homes. So, and I think it's still the record here at Clemson. And one of his coaches, I know you're trying to cut me off here. And it just reminds me of things. One of his coaches, when we interviewed him, said, I follow track and field a lot. And that record, that jump would still win a lot of the meets that I see right now, when Olympic qualifying, all those kind of meets. So Victor certainly has a lot to be proud of there. And, some of the, you look at Jessica Leidecker, you look at, I think, Louise Greenwood, what a leader she was on the team. Stephanie Weichert, Julie Rodriguez, too, who is now living in Norway. She's actually coming from Norway to play volleyball here. And she's bringing some of her family. They're coming early. Jessica Leidecker also coming in early, but to do some things around here. But some of these people coming back have, they just did so much for our programs when they were here. They just elevated the programs tremendously. A lot of All-Americans, a lot of, Stephanie Weichert was an All-American in both track and cross country, and just a long distance runner. Still has one of the top times, and she was back in the 80s, and she still has like one of the top 2 times ever in the 5,000 meters. So if you think about, the success of some of these people and the impact they have on our program, even today, it is a tremendous class, and we're proud to have them.
And looking at the induction will begin this weekend. Bob, before we let you go, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I know that there is a backdrop amongst all the things that you're doing this weekend, but there's a football game that's being played on Saturday night in Death Valley, and TigerNet audience wants to know, what is going to be your prediction for the Tigers on Saturday night, and what have you thought about this team before we let you go?
Well, I love watching the team. Unfortunately, a lot of the home games, I don't even get to start watching the game until midway through the second quarter. And this weekend with all the activities going on, but I do catch a lot on the scoreboard. But I know that this team has been really fun to watch and grow and get better. And that's what's been really fun. I know we got a good team coming in this weekend. They got a good quarterback. Anytime you got a quarterback that can make plays, you got to be very wary of him having a great day out there. If he has an average day, I think we'll be fine. I think with the caliber, especially with the wide receivers, the way they've developed, and the offensive line, and certainly the mature of Cade Klubnik certainly has helped, and the defense has always been solid. I've known Nick Eason ever since he played here, and so I said, Nick, it's all in your hands, and I know that you can handle the line, but you have an impact on the entire defense.
Right.
So he's just somebody I've gotten to know, so I have a lot of confidence in them. But it's been a fun team to watch, and I'm excited about anytime we play at home, anytime we play home at night. It shows off Clemson as good as it ever does, and that's why I can't wait. And you add the Hall of Fame to a football game, you got quite a night, and everybody's going to want to be here.
I think Bob laid it right on the nail there. Bob, thank you for your time so much, and guys, be sure to check out tonight or Saturday night's action, in Death Valley. We're going to be there at TigerNet covering it all, as well as the Hall of Fame inductions of this 2024 class. Guys, thank you as always for tuning in. If you saw the banner fly across your screen, we want to thank our sponsors as well for making the Orange Crush podcast possible. Guys, thank you so much. Take care. Have a good day.